Cool. Hey everyone. I'm gonna hope this is working. There we go. Now we know it's working. Coolness. All right. Hey guys, how you doing? I'm just gonna start going into talking about some of these files and what we're gonna be, talking about the future. I guess that the game came out last Wednesday, just a little over a week and a half ago, and it's been really good. Obviously, I sent out 1,000 coupons. About 800 have been collected. I still get an email now and again from people asking where their coupon is. I don't know what happened. I mean, I have a list. I put it into drive-through. All the coupons went out, so I'm not entirely sure why some people didn't get theirs. I know a few of them have been dumped into a spam folder, and I also know that a few of them were email addresses that just auto-reject something like that. So, like I said, you check your spam folder. And it's still not a problem. I have no problem sending another coupon. That's definitely not going to be an issue at all. So, I'm going to go through some of the things we're going to be changing. We're looking at these actual raw PDF files right now. Not raw PDF, raw publisher files, and then give you an idea about the design process for one thing, as well as some of the alterations that are going into the new game, the next update. Not much so far. There's been a few things we're doing, but it's been pretty minor so far. Let's get going on there. I'm just going to do a little posting so people know. I'm just going to get that posted so everybody knows that I'm up. I should do that scheduling thing. I just don't know how to do it yet. I'm still learning this whole process. Okay, I'm gonna go back to there. Coolness. Okay, I'm gonna close off the Discord channel there. So far there hasn't been any comments on the alien so far. So far, no one's been had. There was one issue which I'll go into later on, and one of the biggest ones is dealing with size. So let's talk about size. So the file name. So when people look at the drive-through RPG, they're seeing a file size of like 400 megabytes. Now that's actually the total download. It's not the actual size of the PDF. The PDF is actually about 240 megabytes. And I can't get that any smaller. And the reason why I can't is dealing with several factors. A is my own limited skill with we're doing with PDF Creator. I can get it down a little bit, like down to just a shave closer to 200, but I'm definitely not going to be able to get it to the 60 or 80 megabytes that some people are kind of hoping. There are a couple ways to get around that, and I'm not entirely sure I like the options. One is that we cut it down to like 75 DPI, which is going to be really low. I'm probably going to render the PDF at 150 DPI, which is going to get it a bit smaller. And then we're going to keep the 300 DPI for the print edition. I usually upload the print edition, but like I said, our files end up getting quite big. So we're going to re-render it at a 150 DPI. Still do have all the other refinement, optimization, and the reduce file filters just to get it down, but it's probably not going to get below 200. It's probably going to stay around the 200 mark. So if you have a really old iPad, it may have issue. That being said, we are going to put out a low ink version, which is the exact same file, but it does not have these backgrounds. And that's going to be smaller as well. So if you're having issues loading up the large 240 or the 200, then maybe that the low ink version will be able to help you. It'll still have the exact same layout, fonts, and the images, but the backgrounds won't be here. Yeah, so that's that out of the way. So that's going to be down the pipe. I'm waiting a little bit further just to make sure that I don't have any more big alterations to this patch. We'll call it 1.1 or whatever case may be. So, yeah, I'm going to zoom this in because it's probably going to be a little... Yeah, get that up there. There we go. One of the first ones I'll talk about, and this is actually not an alteration. Somebody thought this was a mix-up, and it's actually not. I think it's in the Animist under a snake. Could be... I'm trying to see where it's hiding here. It's definitely not under there. It's definitely one of these guys. Basically, it was a poison ability. Basically, allows you to poison a creature, and somebody thought it was overpowered, and I actually don't believe it is. I don't believe it's actually overpowered. I find hairs. Quills, mutes, metabolism, legs, large keen hearing, slow speed, tail, wicked tongue. For grabbing stuff. These are basically our superhero mutants, basically. And bat, bear, frog, goat, rat, tiger, shark. Somewhere in here is a poison ability, and somebody thought it was overpowered, and it's actually, I don't think it is. Not much is being changed in robots, and genetic benefits haven't changed. That's directly taken over from Ultramodern5. Oh, I think it's under Splice. Splice had it. Yeah, the Viper. You're immune to poison damage in the poison condition. Additionally, as many times a day as your proficiency bonus, as an action, you can make a ranged poison spit attack against a target up to 20 feet away. If hit, the target suffers 1 die 6 per proficiency bonus plus Constitution. So if you have a proficiency bonus of 2, it's 2 die 6 plus proficiency bonus. If you're 20th level and you have a plus 6 proficiency bonus, it's 6 die 6 plus Constitution poison damage. I don't believe in any way that this is actually... so 6 times a day you can do a 6 die 6 damage. The rogue is putting out way more damage for an action at that level. You still counts as a use if you miss, so it's not a big deal. You can still repeat the save. I added this line here: a creature that it makes the save is immune to the effect for 24 hours. Pretty simple. That's a little addition. So that was an addition just to make sure that people are aware that it's not as, it's basically runs the same as the other ones. That should be like that. Fix that up. Somebody was asking me why yokai are in here. They kind of stand out. The yokai are a carryover race that were taken out of Amethyst. They were supposed to be an Amethyst race, and they were introduced in a later campaign, and they didn't really fit in then, so I ended up kind of retconning them out, and because we got to print, I never bothered putting them in, so the yokai kind of show up in here. I still like them, so that's pretty cool. This is an illustration that Nick did in passing. I couldn't figure out a monster for it. I know it's basically a red cap because he's wearing a red cap, so he's just a piece of filler animation there. So I'm going to close off birth and go off to the next one, which is life. No one has commented on anything mechanically dubious in this chapter. And probably makes sense considering that there's not much in mechanics here. Once again, as people know, that this life path system is inspired by a similar one in Cyberpunk 2020. And we saw a very similar one pop up in Wizards of the Coast official publication, some book that came out, I think, about a year and a half ago. I'm not ripping them off. I think we are both taking it from Cyberpunk 2020. I'm fully admitting it, and they should as well. And so nothing else is being mechanically changed here just because there's not much to change. So I'm going to close that off for now. Where are we going now? We just go into 4. Where's 4 hiding? Pop glasses. Oh, there's ladders right there. Okay. So far, okay, there was a couple things people were mentioning before the book came out. and that was primarily dealing with the warrior. The warrior has had his abilities boosted a little bit. This was before publication, so it's not being patched in. Yeah, so not much change there. So we've made power up a bit more powerful. Just because it takes an action to power up, you want to be able to play with. Although I actually may have to change this here. You have advantage on your next attack. Now, I've noticed in the old Ultramodern and with Amethyst, this was not an issue, but with the new Ultramodern, the damage scaling can be problematic because there's tons of weapons that don't properly work with the damage scaling. I really like the damage scaling in the original system, but it doesn't really work with super heavy weapons. So if you have advantage in your next attack roll, the damage die of any weapon you wield increases by 1 step. That works with melee weapons. It's not working now with all the new Tekken weapons. So that's probably going to get changed by a simple static boost to damage, right? It'll just probably just do an extra plus 2 points of damage. It's just going to be flat. I kind of like the idea of these damage scaling, but I don't think it's working. So you mentioned next attack roll, and see, you have advantage on your next attack. If you hit, you gain a plus 2 bonus to damage. So that's probably what we're going to have to do. It's not as effective. It's not as fun as the other one, but it just works. So you have advantage on your next attack. If you hit, you gain a plus 2 bonus to damage. So we'll do that. We'll put that there so it still fits. And that's basically how we're going to do it. We're going to, I'm kind of, there's still damage scaling with a couple aspects. Like for the melee, for the martial artist, his damage scaling stays the same because he doesn't use ranged weapons with his ability. Therefore, it doesn't break down as much. So that's basically a change we'll do for ladders. And we're going to close that up and move on to classes, which is right here. We did a few changes before publication, which we were talking about, but there hasn't been much for changes after it, but there were 1 or 2 of them I wanted to mention. Let's go here. No one said anything about civilian yet, so thankfully, I don't know if anyone's tried to play with civilian characters. I'm going to hopefully assume that there's no problems with it, because no one said anything, so I'm not addressing it. Same thing with face. Oddly enough, when it comes to the non-combat classes, no one's actually saying anything negative about it. Grounder hasn't had a couple of changes just before publication, a couple of minor things. We played with his assault and so forth, so his damage scaling went up a bit. Heavy got played around a little bit as well, but nothing that's going to go into this patch coming in sometimes probably next week. So nothing's happened on this side. Gunslinger. Somebody had a question about the Gunslinger. They were concerned because with ranged weapons in traditional 5th edition, you have this advantage if you're firing closer to, if you're doing a ranged attack against a target 5 feet. And with the Gunslinger, he gets advantage on attacks at 5 feet with a certain ability, or he gets a +1 bonus. I can't remember what it was, but you have to remember that pistols don't suffer from the same penalty for ranged attacks from the traditional 5e rules. So that's the reason why I didn't bother putting that in. And if you're in the gear chapter, you'll see that. The heavy hasn't changed. It received a little bit of a boost before publication, so nothing going into the patch. Same thing with Infiltrator. I don't think Infiltrator changed. I know he was boosted before. We added these solid skills a couple weeks before publication, so that's not going to be a big change. Marshall hasn't changed. And let's see here. Go through there. Nothing of note. Martial artist. I said martial artist had been nerfed a little bit, and there were some things that were clarified to make sure that people weren't abusing the system, but that was all done before publication. Medic wasn't changed. I'll go to Sniper. I think I changed something with Sniper. It wasn't Hollow Point, wasn't Boom, wasn't Assassin Psychology. Yeah, Academic Kill might have been tweaked a little bit. And yeah, not much was changed there. Yeah, not much. I know Frangible Bullet was a new thing. With Tech, he did get a significant little alteration, though. With them, once again, talking about the damage scaling not really working. With the new weapons, we're going in there and we're just doing static boosts. So, oh, I have the backup file open instead of the regular file. Do I have the? 'Cause I've already made these changes. Yeah. There's the regular classes. So this is the wrong file. That's why. I've already made these changes. Go away. There we go. Open that up. So now if you go to yeah, so there we go. Yeah, your whoop, off page. There we go. Your weapon's damage gains a +2 bonus to stacks with other effects that increase damage. You can add this modification up to 3 times. So that's basically the rules. Well, there's a big gap now because we've actually removed the damage scaling, and now we're just doing +2 bonuses. So increased rate of fire gives you a +2 bonus, increased caliber gives you a +2 bonus, and if you go on the next page, you'll see that Midas Touch gives you a +2 bonus as well. So you can just keep on purchasing these things and getting up to, I think, up to a +8 bonus to damage. If you want to go that direction. So that was the big thing, because somebody pointed out the damage scaling works with only a handful of weapons. It doesn't work with the super heavy weapons, and doesn't work with some of the unique oddball weapons that have variant damage. Like you can't play with this with flamethrowers as much. So if you just do a static flat damage bonus, it does work. So that's the big thing going on with them. So far that was it for classes. No one's really said anything about that. Archetype. I think there hasn't been anything here, but there was a clarification. One was that the Machine of War doesn't have a proficiency entry. That was actually intentional, because it doesn't have any proficiencies, because the abilities are so generic. You don't need to add any more proficiencies to gain it. So nothing on there. I know I actually spelt Field Medic wrong on the contents, so that's been fixed. There were a couple of other spelling mistakes that we also addressed. But if you actually guys find any spelling mistakes, send me a message. I'll get them popped in before we hit publication. And then I can make fun of my editors who screwed that up. And yeah, I'll show you where it is here. Yeah, so these damage scaling on Taekwondo, that doesn't have to change. So Machine of War, I added this entry here. Proficiency's none. That's basically all I did. I had to alter the size of this illustration to get this all to fit. So he got shrunk a little bit in order to get that going. So that proficiency is none, just to indicate the Machine of War doesn't actually gain anything. And I think that was it for archetypes. I think that's all I played with archetypes. Yeah, I can't see anything else. By the way, if you guys have any questions, just post it in the stream. I'm actually looking at them. So if you do have anything to say, go ahead and share it. And so I'll close that off. Save that. Oh, apparently I didn't. It's recovered. Oh, okay. We'll mess with it later. Don't save. Magic gear. Let's go to gear. There we go. By the way, there was a guy who posted YouTube video. He was talking about Ultramodern, which was really nice. He shared it on Twitter with me, and I watched his video. It was actually very nice, but all he did was basically read out the promotional page. It wasn't much else. We're about 35 books away from earning our Electrum badge, by the way, which is pretty cool. Obviously, it's gonna take a long time if it ever hits the mithril status of the original Ultramodern 5. Obviously, Ultramodern 5 sales are probably gonna hit a wall because we're probably not gonna sell anymore. Because obviously, people are gonna want the larger color version for only like $7 more. So. Let's see here. Okay, I'm just gonna get this smaller because it's becoming a pain in the butt. Come on, zoom out. Yeah, fortunately, I have so many things running right now. My render speed is really low, and as I've said, this is actually a very graphically intense file. We didn't mess around with. Oh yeah, there was a couple things in this one. One is that there was a mention of a weapon being Mastercraft. That Mastercraft was a relic from the old Amethyst book. So that's gone. So if you're confused why weapon had a Mastercraft property, that got deleted. It's not there anymore. So don't worry about that. So if you saw an entry something that's Mastercraft, don't worry about it. That was nothing. A few of the weapons were missing tech levels, so that got added in. And I don't think anything changed with those. I'm going to zip over to vehicles, I think. I think we played with vehicles a little bit. Melee weapons didn't get changed. And then the demolitions. So we'll skip to... those are shields, gear, cybernetics, vehicles. We've added the tech levels for vehicles here. Somebody was commenting the fact that we have tech levels listed for aircraft but not vehicles, so we have added them. Of course, the vast majority are all ones because they're all ground vehicles, and then we've added a few 3s and 4s for the hot tank and the hover vehicles and so forth. So yeah, that's tech levels. Vast majority of them are just ones, so that got put in. And I think that was it. Did I do anything with vehicles at all? Aircraft? I don't think so, because their tech levels were already in there from before, so nothing there changed. Yeah, so I think that was it for them. Very lucky that it ended on a perfect page there. Okay, so Mecca. Now this is where things definitely we did do a few changes here, because Mecca, most of the people that were testing Mecca were... they're used to the Artelzorian system, which this is inspired from. So they were used to things being a little OP. But a few people had a couple of concerns, and we made a couple of additions. So I'll show you what we did here. Just before publication, we did play around, and we removed having individual location hit points, so that's gone. And that hasn't changed, but when we get to weapons, that has. Range weapon modifiers. Okay, so damage scaling has changed. So they scale up a bit more aggressively. So instead of 1 die 6 to 1 die 8 to 1 die 10, it goes to 1 die 6 to 1 die 10, 2 die 8, 2 die 10, and it keeps on going all the way to 8 die 6 times 2. So these upper weapons do a lot more damage than they did before. A considerable amount of damage. Oh, I remember what the other point was. Somebody was commenting that space efficiency was too good, and they have a point. It works well in certain areas, but not in others. So when we were doing the space efficiency, which is right here, it's now 1 CP per size category per space removed. So now it depends on how big you are. So if you're cosmic, it's going to cost you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12 CP per space removed for a mech. So that's why the bigger you are, obviously you'll have more capacity to do things. But you'll also, unfortunately, it'll cost you more to reduce the sizes of larger weapons. Although technically, I don't know, maybe I should flip that the other way around, so it's actually easier to put it in larger ones. That probably makes more sense. I probably may have to flip it around. So base weapons got changed, so their damages have increased. We've also added a flamethrower element. So where is it? Projectile weapons. I know I put it here. Oh, there it is. Ammunition missile modifiers. Yeah, so that actually should be over here, I think. So I'm gonna have to move flamethrower from over there to over here, just because it's technically a plasma flamethrower, not a ammunition missile modifier. So that's gonna go over there. So we're gonna move that around. I'll do that later. The other thing I changed is explain the cell magazine. Cell magazines were they're one and the same effectively, but I just had the entry stating magazine, so some people were confused because we actually would talk about infinite magazine, and there isn't an infinite magazine, it's an infinite cell. So I just didn't change any rules. I just added the word cell so you guys know what I was talking about. So this is an entry for both cell and magazine, so that was the only thing. I had to shrink this guy and this guy a bit because of the extra stuff we put in. There's our rules for flamethrower. And once again, this is actually interesting. The flamethrower length is dependent on your size, not the power of the weapon. So the size of the cone is dependent on your size. Tiny, it's tiny to small, it's 10 feet. If you're medium, it's 20 feet. Large, 30. Huge, 40. And all the way to cosmic. So if you're a cosmic size mech, your flamethrower cone is 300 feet. Which is actually pretty small for a cosmic, considering how big a cosmic size Mecca is. But that's basically the rule. So that's one advantage of your size, is if you have a flamethrower, it gets bigger. Mega Beam and this stuff hasn't changed. Somebody was asking about ammunition cost. As we state in the rule here, you get 2 clips or cells automatically. Actually, better put that cells in there before I forget. So cells magazines automatically, and then ammunition cost is for additional rounds or additional burst, whatever the case may be. Okay. Oh, I don't want to do that. Cool. Okay. So yeah, there's been a few changes with Mecca, because I know, and rightly so, the damage from melee weapons also got changed to adjust with the ranged weapons. So that's the ultra high powered melee attack. If you're a cosmic scale, then you can do that much damage with a melee attack, which makes sense considering how big you are. I thought I reduced the cost of something. Oh, right, there was something in the options. Somebody was asking me about what... did I skip past options already? I don't think so. No, still on melee weapons. Oh, here they are. So we had a damage control module, and then a emergency kit here. And they're actually one and the same. Somebody was asking... Hey, Darren. Someone was asking what a damage control module was and why there was no emergency kit in the table. That's because they're actually one and the same. So the emergency kit got changed to a damage control module, so that's the only thing. So they're basically the same thing. And that just gives you fire retardant, dozen flare, shortwave radio, stuff like that. So that was a simple little mistake. I just had them name 2 different things here and there. So let's see here. Command armor system multipliers, they haven't changed. I'm expecting this to have people to have some fun with this one. I'm almost expecting people to find some huge flaws with that. Someone was asking why we don't have organic weapons with this area, because when we go back to weapons here, we had nothing for organic. And that's because organic... There are some organic weapons in the gear, but when we got to Mecca, it was kind of... There were so many different properties here that adding an organic property wouldn't apply anything, because you could just say this is a flare and it just happens to be organic. So when you do the organic in the that back over here, techno organics, then your weapons just become organic. They don't gain anything really else. So you have this, weapons become organic as well. The weapons are identical otherwise. So that's the only thing we changed there. So nothing really big. I really don't like to have that there, though. I should try to squeeze that so I can get that one little orphan onto that line. That's pretty easy. I can just do that. A little more. Just so I can get... There we go. Pretty small. Just so I can get that table. Yeah, that looks better. Good. And then transformations haven't changed much. Get that saved. Go on to magic. There's probably going to be a magical sheet made. But that being said, we're kind of working on the GM screen first, because the GM screen's backdrop image is really large and very technically complicated. I haven't seen any sketches yet. I'm trusting that Nick's going to give us a really great illustration. It kind of sucks that we closed the Pledge Manager before we showed off that image, because I'm hoping people are like, oh damn, I wish I could have gotten that GM screen now, but it is what it is. We'll probably have that available as PDF as an additional thing. We'll get it out to people, but you'll still get a physical copy that's still getting printed and distributed from China when that happens. Yeah, I bet you $50. We're coming in very blurry, aren't we? And there's something about my bit rate or something. I don't know. I have to get someone to look at this. Magic Systems hasn't really affected things too much. I am going to, as I said, make a character sheet for just magic. I didn't add the magical system into the basic character sheet because I imagine there's going to be only a few campaigns that are going to employ techno magic in their modern game. So I didn't want to muck up or confuse the system too much by adding all these magical rules to the character sheet for a magical system you guys aren't going to be using. So chances are we'll just make a second page character sheet that'll have vigor and the so forth, and probably have the actual skills, detection, induce, and commune. Or either that, or we'll do a completely different character sheet that's just for magic, and that'll have the 3 extra skills and the extra ability. A few people were asking for a more unique character sheet that's more of a individual kind of, reflecting the differences of Ultramodern, rather than one that's just a slight variation of the one you see with 5th edition. My experience has been that most gamers are very, I hate to say the word conservative. They don't like a lot of change, which is the reason why 5th edition is so much like 3rd edition, and that's one of the reasons why 4th edition was, so many people hated 4th edition. And that's just my opinion on that. So I didn't want to create something that's too different, because I think that more people would complain about it being too different rather than people complaining about the similarities of the new one. Yeah, I think it should be good for psionics. That was the intent. I was originally going to create a psionics system with this magic system, but they said, you know what, I'm just going to call it techno magic, but it's really easy because, once again, this magic system doesn't require a spell book, doesn't really require... It can. There's some elements to it that require physical components. I may play with a purely psionic system down the road, but that also being said, I know that 5th edition has... Official 5th edition stuff has played with psionics before. and I know the 3.5 has put out Psionics in one of their books, and I'm pretty sure that somebody's put out Psionics. So that's why I wanted to focus on techno magic more than just pure Psionics. I like the dark system. I think this is more reflective of a urban magic system that you would find, something that's completely different. It's got a little bit of a Cthulhu-esque touch to it, and I love the idea of incorporating technology into it as well. This was also kind of inspired by MMOs with their regenerating mana. Now is the other point with that one as well. But it can definitely pass off as Psionics. I love that illustration, by the way. This was really tricky. There's actually two images back to back. One of them is the image you see. Another one's an invisible image that's outlining this wrap. Because if the image behind us, if this image here is actually dictating the wrap, then the letters would be behind the image instead of in front of it, and this blueness would actually be blocking out, and I didn't want that. I wanted the text on top of the blue. So to do that, I actually had to put this image to the back. So it's just so as a layer, it's this layer, this image, and then the text box on top of it, and then there's this hidden image, which is, I think I'm gonna find where it is, where it's hiding. Oh, there it is right there. So there it is. There's actually a hidden image. You can't see it. It's actually right there. And since you don't see these lines when we hit print, you don't actually see where that image is. But it's a bit of a shortcut in order to get this image to do exactly this. One of the Mecca armor in the gear chapter has that same effect. And we do the exact same thing with this image, which is Mark Mear's image. And in case you're wondering, yeah, everything's flipped around. So in the actual print, Mark's on the left-hand side and not the right-hand side. So this is a cool thing. But in order to get this to do this perfectly, I literally had to create another false image, which is right there. And that actually dictates all of this. But that's a cool one. That's the Magi class. I think if Mark's willing to do the narration for future projects, I'll just continually to get Nick to draw another version of Mark. He's fantastic. It's weird if someone were to tell me after playing Mass Effect for as often as I did, because I always play Male Shep. I'm a Male Shep guy. I will very often, and this is kind of weird, I will play my Paragon Male Shep. I'll play it usually twice. I'll play it once, the first time, and then I'll play it again, making sure I get all my choices correct. And then I'll play as a female Shep, and I'll go pure renegade, so I kind of call her Bitch Shep because she's a really, really mean person. But if you were to tell me that I would actually be friends with the guy who does the voice of that, I would told you it'd be crazy. But yeah, we're friends. We actually talk a bit now and again. I'm hoping we'll do a project together, and I'll talk about that in a bit at the end, a bit of a preview of what's going to happen in the future, and it's going to be a little unusual. We'll get into that in a second, but there's something really cool happening next month, but we'll get into that later. So we have the archetypes, the Technomancer. No one said anything about the actual magic spell systems yet. Like I said, I'm adding another magic system in the first Affinity book. If I try with Psionics, I would want the Psionics to be in one of the other books. Maybe Conestoga or maybe a Taurus. I don't know. I know that Chris Stilson has come on board to write the second book, which is the steampunk setting. I want there to be magic in all three settings. So if he doesn't, I would love to do a magic system based around a deck of cards. So you actually play cards and you can do magic depending on what you do. So it's kind of completely random. So you're just drawing cards and you're trying to create combinations depending on what you play. If he does, I'm going to challenge him to do that. If he doesn't do it, I might create that magic system and add it to his setting because I think it's a cool idea. And steampunk Old West kind of fits with a magic system that uses a deck of cards. I was going to do that in this game, but I was going to have two different magic systems. So the dark magic system and the vigor system, instead of being part of one magic system, were actually two different systems entirely. One was more traditional, used regenerating mana, and the other one used a deck of cards. You would actually have to get a 52 deck of cards, and you'd have to draw those cards. And then I realized it was getting really complicated, and I didn't want to add two magic systems, and technically the unlock was only for one. So I combined Vigor and dark into one system and created the system we see here. But I like the idea of playing with the chaos of Magic by having a deck of 52 playing cards. So I don't think that's going to really fit with the space setting of Conestoga. So I'm probably going to find a way to put it in Taurus. So if Chris can't do it, you just want to do it, I'll probably do it myself and put it in there. But I want a Magic system. The Magic system in Conestoga will probably be closer to something like Psionics, where it's entirely inbuilt into somebody's makeup. Either that, or it'll be a cybernetic-based system, where cybernetics will give you access to magic or something like that. We'll get into more of that as we explore. Affinity is not on hold, but we're kind of focusing on getting the print productions done. And I have another few projects to do, and then I'll be finishing up Affinity. All I need to do for Affinity right now is do the monsters. Once that's done, I'll give it to Chris to take a look at, and then he will be able to construct his setting from the DNA of the setting that I made. So I don't believe there's anything really big happening with these rules so far, so I think they're not being changed. I think I talked about archetype. Oh yeah, that's the old archetype page. That's the reason why. So I think that might be it. Am I adding anything else? Let's go into antagonists. Give you an idea. My computer is actually pretty fast for being like 5 years old, because it was really expensive back then. Let's see. I don't think I changed anything here. No, I don't think I did. No one's had any comments, which is really weird, because you think it'd be really difficult to play with monsters, but monsters are so easy. They're really quite easy. People talk about game balancing with the classes, but monsters, it just seems like you just throw caution to the wind. Monsters are so vague. You think that there's a lot of really specific rules. 4th edition it was. 4th edition monsters were very specific and they were very well defined. But in 5th edition, same with 3.5, there's a lot of vagueness. Like there's no specific set of checks and balances. Like if you do this specifically, you are challenge rating 3 and so forth. But you have a lot of freedom to do what you want. I know just before we hit publication, I added the super. I actually added about 2 more. I added Demon Drone, Exalted. I might have added. I know I added super, so people can play with superpowers, and I added, super. Yeah, that was the big one I added. But I put that in before publication. Yeah, so not much got changed there. No one's had any comments about the spacecraft combat yet. And no one said anything about Necropolis, despite the fact that some people are saying that they like the Necropolis setting more. For those people who are curious, these are both based on original campaigns I ran. So Threshold was based on a campaign called Pathfinder. And yeah, I made this Pathfinder in 1994. So it predates Paizo's Pathfinder by a considerable margin. But obviously I wasn't going to keep that name, so I changed it back. If you go to my homebrew page, it's still called Pathfinder there, because I didn't change it. And if Paizo gives me any grief, I'll go, well, technically that site's been up since 1996, so thank you, but no. But I called it Threshold, and I also changed the setting just slightly. The other big addition that's going into the update, a few people have been asking a lot for maps without grids, and we're doing that. So the file update is going to show Ultramodern, the total file download probably being 600 megabytes. And that's going to go probably even more. It could even be more than that, because it's going to have the regular res version, the low ink version, and it's going to have a whole bunch of new maps. Because like I said, 240 megabytes for the main file as it is right now. That means of the 440 megabyte file listed on Drive-Thru RPG, 200 megabytes of that are just the maps. And now we're about to add in about another 10 or no, probably 20, no, 10, 15 more maps. Yes, I know you remember Pathfinder. The spacecraft combat is done very, very, Darren was actually in the original Pathfinder game from 1996, give you an idea how long I've known him. So the threshold setting is different than the old Pathfinder setting. It still has a couple things. So if Darren looks at this map, which is high res online, you'll see a bunch of names. And if you go back to, I was talking with Chris Brown, who's came on board to help me with some of the mechanics. The episode section down here, going into a couple episode examples. These are direct quotes from episodes of the original Pathfinder game that I ran in the mid-90s. So it's weird that I dusted that off. Same thing with Necropolis. Necropolis, however, there are two versions of Necropolis. Was one Necropolis, which is a kind of bubblegum crisis-inspired Mecca story set in a cyberpunk city. And then I made a second Necropolis only a few years ago, which was a superhero cybernetic dystopian brutalist future, and that's what's in the Necropolis chapter that we have here. But so far, I think the spacecraft combat are pretty simple. They're not designed to be terribly complicated, unlike Mecca. So the combat system modifications and so forth, they're pretty simple. They're not designed to be terribly complicated. Yeah, I love the fact that he made a ship look like a snail. Some of these illustrations, by the way, that one and that one, are actually from Amethyst factions. The only reason why a couple of pieces of artwork from factions and Amethyst showed up in Ultramodern has been because we kind of ran out of, Nick ran out of time. We had a whole bunch of illustrations I would have wanted to do, but if we moved at this pace, the game wouldn't have been out till March, and I really didn't want to hold it back. I wanted to get it out. So I used a bunch of Amethyst images to kind of fill up the gaps. And we saw a lot more Ultramodern than Amethyst, so I'm pretty sure most people are not going to notice. Some people who have factions went, hey, that's from factions. But, whatever. I think no one's complained about it. There's still plenty of fantastic illustrations in this book. The only issue with the maps is that when Jeremy Simmons did these maps here, he did them with the grids already basically set. And you can see here it's quite easy because him and his kind of ingeniousness, he made the grids feel like they're actually part of the deck plans. So they aren't overlaid. So you can see with this, right? These look like they're actually seams in plating. And same thing here. They look like seams in grating. And that's why the lines are below the props and the seats and chairs, not above them, and that's why he can't remove the grids from the ship, because they're actually part of the design. I think that's absolutely brilliant. So same thing with the cryosleep chamber and the quarters. It all kind of fits in with the motif. So these ones will not be released without grids, because the grids are actually part of the maps. But all of the other ones, the city map, the office map, the compound maps, they're all getting released without grids. So there'll be a lot more images added to the maps online. So you'll see that drive-through RPG number go up considerably. And then people are going to ask, like, how in the world is this PDF like 600 megabytes? And I'm like, no, it's not. It's only like 200 megabytes. There's a bunch of freebies. But somebody was asking like 400 megabytes. I was like, I should have actually said to him, like, that's actually not the size of the file. The file is actually only 200, and we've added a bunch of freebies. Same thing with the form fillable character sheet, which is here. Oh, that's the D&D one. Where's ours? There we go. So that's what's going up online. So we have everything done here. Oh, we have somebody's commenting there, so not do that. Go back there, open that up. Good, just so we can see. All right. So yeah, this was hard because Nick designed the sheet, but I had to do all the form fields myself. It's a learning experience because you basically have to create every one of these individually and then name them. And then you also want to be able to put them in such a way that people can use them. So like that works like that, and then those are a larger font. So this is a big font, but as you type it, it gets smaller. You actually have to set that. So for these ones, these are multi-lines, right? Which makes sense. And as you type more, it gets smaller and smaller. So that's you actually have to set that for each code. So every one of these had to get set individually. So these ones don't do multi-lines. These ones don't do multi-lines, but these ones do multi-lines. That one does multi-lines. That one, and that one do multi-lines. And then you have to get these boxes, so the boxes actually click on or off properly. So that works. Obviously, we have added the new skills. So there's sciences, engineering, computer use have been added there. Like I said, the magic ones haven't been added, and I'm apprehensive adding vigor and the magic stuff to this basic sheet. I would rather create a second sheet that has all of that stuff. That's what I think, personally. So yeah, this is going to go out with the next update. Like I said, I'm waiting just a little bit longer just to make sure there's no other really big changes I have to do. And then we'll be uploading all the new maps, the revised book, as well as the character sheet. And then sometime, probably in March, we'll release a Mecca character sheet and the magic character sheets. But that's going to be probably in March after we get... I want to get the print run going, which involves getting the GM screen done. Which reminds me, I have to work on the GM screen. Nick's doing the outside. I have to do the inside. So I had a bunch of extra space. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I'm going to put spacecraft combat in one of those pages. So it'll hopefully cover everyone's bases. It's not going to copy paste a lot of stuff from the 5th edition screen. Other than conditions. Conditions are something you just have to always put in. So I'll have conditions on one leaf, but everything else will be uniquely ultramodern. So hopefully no one will have any issues with that. Okay, so I'll sum up talking to what's going to be in the future. Like I said, we're doing the GM screen for February, which means we'll probably get the book shipped from China sometime in March, and which means they should hit distribution by April. It's assuming the coronavirus hasn't wiped out Asia. So, because right now, nothing is coming out of Asia. Right now, of course, my contact isn't saying anything. They don't want people to say it's not going to make it. All right, thanks, man. I'll get that. Page 357, special weapon properties header spelled. Yeah. Spelling mistakes. Definitely send me messages for any spelling mistakes you find. That's just going to be because me and Chris Dilson, Chris Brown, yes, we're all named Chris, and a bunch of playtesters. And then we have 1,000 people reading the book suddenly. They're going to catch up a lot of things we miss. And because my editors are designed to look primarily for mechanical imbalances, spelling isn't as a big a deal for them. They will catch it when they can, but they're trying to look for mechanical imbalances first and foremost. And the Affinity books will probably start getting released sometime probably in the summer. And I'll probably be announcing another Kickstarter probably around that same time period. And just people know, as I said many times, it's going to be another Amethyst. It's going to be the 3rd book of Amethyst, and people will be able to order the first 2 books as well. So we're going to do a 3rd book, and then the first 2 books will be part of that same package. And we'll hopefully do a print run of Amethyst as well. I'm hoping, because Amethyst is not as popular as Ultramodern, but it's also a good setting, and I think settings also do well. I probably will do a second print of Ultramodern5 later down the road, but for now I'm not thinking about that. The weirdest thing that's happening is that in March I'm shooting a film. And not a documentary, not some kind of YouTube thing. It's actually a professional film. Local people here, there's a local company called Barker Street Cinema. Barker Street Cinema has done a bunch of short films locally, and they have worked with local talent. And their biggest production so far was a version of The Doctor's Case, which is a Stephen King short story. There's something called Dollar Babies, where you pay $1 and you gain the rights to adapt one of Stephen King's short stories. You cannot profit off of it unless you go for a proper license, which is usually a lot more expensive. And they're trying to work with that because The Doctor's Case came out really good. It's about an hour long, so it's almost a feature film. I think it's really good. I think the acting is fantastic. A lot of the people are pulled from Barkerville, and they're really astounding. They're astounding actors, actually. I think they're amazing because they memorize a lot. J.P. Winslow, who does Sherlock Holmes, is friggin' amazing. Even though there are other really well-established actors in there, like William B. Davis and Denise Crosby, Michael Coleman, I thought the other actors, the ones that came from Barkerville, are I think they held up their own, if not, I think maybe a little bit better. The JP Winslow, certainly, I thought he was just fantastic. And he's a good guy. He's actually on my friend list now because I keep on talking about how amazing he is. So this is a short film that I am writing and I am producing along with Norm Coyne and Polly James Douglas. And it is called Aerial Alpha. And if people know Aerial Alpha as a name, if you have neurospasta, what do I want to do here for a second? I'm going to go in here because I'm in... it's kind of neat that I can do that now. So Aerial Alpha is a character in Neurospasta. If you know Neurospasta at all, it's a cyberpunk game. It's for 5th edition in Pathfinder. It's actually quite a successful game for us as well. A smaller version of the cybernetics from this book show up in Ultramodern. So if you want a more complicated cybernetic system, including hacking and kind of Ghost in the Shell, hacking people and so forth, then you want to get this game as well. It's still fully compatible with Ultramodern. Same thing with superheroes. We have some superhero-like abilities in Ultramodern, but if you want the really complicated superhero system, you want to get Apex. So, Neurospasta has a setting. It's a political cyberpunk story. And I have a bunch of NPCs in the back of the book. And one of those characters, there's Scott Smith, who's an homage to Kevin Smith. And there was this character named Aerial Alpha. Now, Aerial Alpha... where are those characters? Oh, they're somewhere in here. But one of the characters is Aerial Alpha, and that's her right there. So I wrote a story called Apotheosis, which is kind of a Greek mythos melded with cyberpunk. And I had a scene where the main character has a conversation with a android, a potential companion android, because he was kind of lovelorn. And the story was getting really, really big. So I cut that whole scene out and I focused primarily on him trying to escape a war zone. I had that conversation, which I wrote in a single solitary evening about 8-9 years ago. I was actually like three apartments ago, and I was sitting on that. So when I was talking with Norm, who is a producer at Barker Street, he wanted to do some stories, and they were looking for some more stuff. I had a feature film. We're still working on trying to get a feature film, a full-length feature film called Palingenesis. But they're trying to gain their reputation with their short films so they can attract some bigger investors to get a bigger film done. So I threw him a couple ideas, some more controversial than others, and he locked down on Aerial Alpha because of the simplicity. It's just a conversation between two people. I wrote it over the 3 days, and the response from the group has been phenomenal. Like, it's kind of crazy. We have a director, so James Douglas, who directed Doctor's Case, is directing this film. I'm a producer. Norm's a producer. So I'm securing, I'm trying to figure out locations, figuring out costumes. We had the whole story basically storyboarded before we had a director come on board. So far, this is still looking like it's got a good footprint. And so far, we haven't had any rewrites other than my own rewrites. So it still has me as a solitary writer on it. We have some actors. We have some great actors. One of them, I'm not going to say yet, will be recognizable to anyone listening to this. If you watch this channel, if you follow gaming at all, then you know who one of these actors is. It's quite they're not world famous, but if you're in the gaming community, you will absolutely know this person. The other actor is another actor from Vancouver, who a guy I really like, and they're both coming up in middle of March. We're going to be shooting at a couple restaurants and a couple locations around town for the course of 3 days, and then we'll be doing some post-production stuff afterward. So that's going to be it's only like in three or 4 weeks from now, and it's crazy. I'm going to be terrified because even though I have a writing credit on another project called Wicked Ways of Vamp, or just Wicked Ways, which is coming out. We just had a trailer pop up for that. Very little of my writing got put in. Bits and pieces got thrown in, but no single line of dialogue I wrote got into that script. So, and even if they did follow my story, I didn't have any ownership because it wasn't my idea. And I don't have any involvement in Festies, which is the other project. And then we have another one called Tuesday, which I'm going to be writing after this whole thing with Ariel Alpha finishes. And that'll kind of give me the confidence to kind of continue forward, because this is... It's absolutely terrifying, the fact that we're involved in this. And it's a full-on short film with cinematographers, storyboard artists. It's not like a student project. This is a real deal. So technically, it would be eligible for an Oscar nomination. That's how kind of serious it is. So that's going to happen in March, and I'll be announcing more about that. But this is the first time I'm being public about it. Very few people know about it, just because I was kind of pessimistic that it would actually go forward. But we're actually booking hotels and plane tickets for these actors, and everyone's getting really excited. So yeah, this is kind of really cool. But anyway, that's the big thing. So I may be not talking game stuff for the month of March. I'm still going to be doing updates, but I'm probably going to be hyped up about this film project for the next few weeks. But yeah, so I said we're going to be doing this update patch next week, and then we'll probably have some final stuff for the GM screen by the end of the month, and that will lead us to the final leg of distribution in March and April, which is the other reason why I can do the film in March, because distribution is basically me giving China money and them doing the rest, and then we go on from there. So yeah, I'm going to close that off. I don't need to save it. There we go. I'm going to close that off as well. So yeah, I think that's basically it, guys. Didn't have a lot of people on for this channel, but no problem. This will stay online. And yeah, I may do this again down the road. But remember, we have a Discord channel. Like I said, we have a Discord channel. You can see the link. In fact, it's right here. There's my Discord. There it is. We have a channel for General, Ultramodern, and Amethyst. Oh, somebody asked a question right now. Good question. How do you guys handle multi-classing with Ultramodern? Let's get the screen out of the way so you can see it. How do you guys handle multi-classing with Ultramodern5 out of curiosity? Multi-classing should work the same as 5e, with the notable exception that we generally don't advise mixing modern and magic classes. Not sure why I capitalized those. So yeah, multi-classing should work the same as 5e, with the notable exception that we generally don't advise mixing modern and magic classes. They were never tested, and from our limited experience, would create game-breaking combos. There we go. So that's that. So yeah, if you have any questions, yeah, join the channel. There's actually quite a few people. We actually have over 50 people already so far. Which is just really, really cool. And like I said, we are going to next week send files off to Fantasy Grounds and D20 Pro. So you will be able to use those. Don't bother asking about Roll20. They had the files for the old book. They never did them. So I've kind of given up with them trying to do a version for Ultramodern, offering the rule system on their platform. But everyone seems to like Fantasy Grounds more anyway. So D20 Pro and Fantasy Grounds are going to get those files, and they'll be available whenever they convert them. So once they get the files, it's entirely up to them to do the conversion. Okay, so I'm going to close that off for now, and we're going to say goodbye. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and I'm back to work.